In the year 2035, humanity's greatest threat arrived, and we were unprepared. They came from the skies. Silent, deadly, unstoppable. The invasion wiped out billions in mere weeks. Our governments, once our protectors, betrayed us. They allied with the invaders, exchanging our lives for their survival. But we are the resistance. We fight for the future, for those who have fallen, and for the freedom we lost. This is a war for survival. A battle against not just the invaders, but against those who turned their backs on us. The only question is, how far are you willing to go to take back your world? Welcome to Shattered Resistance. Join us as we follow the story of a small group of survivors in a fight against impossible odds, where every choice could be their last. Prologue: The Fall of Humanity. The world changed on June 16, 2035. Humanity was caught off guard when the first alien ships appeared in the skies. At first, they hovered silently over major cities, motionless and seemingly peaceful. Governments scrambled for answers. Some nations tried to make contact, others prepared for war, but there was no response from the visitors. For days, the world held its breath. People stared at the sky, caught between hope and fear. Then, without warning, the ships unleashed destruction. Cities were obliterated in minutes. Entire populations were decimated. The invaders didn't seek to conquer. They sought to exterminate. Survivors watched as alien war machines rolled across the land, wiping out human resistance with ruthless efficiency. The skies turned black with smoke and ash. The Earth, once a thriving planet, became a wasteland in a matter of weeks. In the chaos, world governments crumbled. There was no unified front, no great army to fight back. Instead, what remained of humanity was scattered into factions, each one trying to survive. But the worst blow came when rumors started spreading. The remaining governments hadn't been destroyed. They had made a deal with the invaders. The story was hard to believe at first. Some said it was desperation. Others believed it was greed. Either way, the alien forces allowed those in power to stay in control, on the condition that they helped round up survivors for processing. Cities that weren't annihilated were transformed into camps, and people who had once looked to their governments for protection were now hunted by them. The invaders, known only as the Others, had a different agenda. They weren't just exterminating humanity, they were experimenting on them, using humans for unknown purposes. And in the middle of this nightmare, a small group of survivors refused to give up. Episode 1: After the Fall. The ruins of the once great city stretched endlessly, the shattered remnants of buildings casting jagged shadows across the land. The sky, now a dull grey from years of war, was filled with the remnants of alien technology, machines that hummed ominously, patrolling the devastated landscape. This was the world now, a place where hope was in short supply and survival was all that mattered. Elias Johnson led his team through the wreckage, each step deliberate and cautious. Known as Ghost for his ability to move undetected in hostile environments, Elias was a hardened man, scarred both physically and emotionally. His dark brown eyes scanned the horizon as his hand instinctively brushed the photograph tucked inside his vest, a picture of his wife and daughter, both victims of the invasion. The team of 4 survivors had been through hell together, and though they were vastly different in personality and background, their shared experience had bonded them in ways few could understand. Elias, once a Special Forces soldier, now bore the weight of leadership like a burden. He had always been a man of action, decisive and strong, but the years had worn him down. The loss of his family had been the final blow, yet he continued to fight, not just for survival, but for some form of redemption. In moments of silence, when the others weren't looking, he would pull out the photo and stare at it, his expression softening for just a moment before the hardness returned. Beside him was Sarah Castillo, the team's tech specialist. Sarah was in her mid-20s, a sharp-tongued engineer with a quick mind and a jaded heart. Her hands were constantly moving, whether fixing broken equipment or scavenging for parts in the ruins. Sarah had learned long ago not to trust people easily. The invasion had taken her brother, and the betrayal of human governments had confirmed her suspicions that everyone was out for themselves. Her sarcasm was a shield, but deep down she still hoped to one day find her brother, or at least learn what had happened to him. Rounding out the group was Riley "Tank" O'Connell, a hulking figure with a prosthetic arm that was both a weapon and a tool. Riley's massive size and strength made him the team's heavy weapons expert, but despite his intimidating appearance, Riley had a soft heart. He was the joker of the group, always ready with a quip or a laugh, though it was clear to those who knew him that the humor was his way of coping with the trauma of war. His body was a canvas of tattoos, each marking a memory of a fallen comrade or a battle survived. He wore those memories openly, never shying away from the weight of his past. And then there was Naomi Chen, the team's sniper and recon expert. Naomi was a woman of few words, her sharp eyes always scanning the horizon for threats. She had been an Olympic-level archer before the invasion, and her precision in combat was unmatched. But Naomi's calm exterior hid a deep well of grief. She had lost her entire family in the first wave of attacks, and though she rarely spoke of them, the pain was ever present in her actions. She fought with a quiet intensity, as if each shot was a small act of vengeance. The four of them moved silently through the ruins, scavenging what they could from the remains of the city. As they approached an old military outpost, the group stopped for a moment to catch their breath. It was here that Sarah, always tinkering with gadgets, managed to get an old radio working. At first it was just static, but then a faint, distorted voice came through. They, watching, government with them. The words were barely audible, but they sent a chill through the group. Sarah, ever the skeptic, raised an eyebrow. So it's true, the government really did sell us out. Riley, always ready with a joke, shrugged. Maybe it's just someone playing with old tech, trying to freak us out. Naomi's voice was quiet but firm. Or it's the truth. All eyes turned to Elias. He stood silently for a moment, weighing the risks. The idea of the government working with the others had been circulating for years, but this was the first time they had heard something so direct. Finally, Elias spoke. We need to check this out. There's an old military base a few miles from here. If there's any truth to that message, we'll find answers there. That night, as they prepared for the mission, each of them dealt with their own thoughts in silence. Sarah stayed up late, fiddling with the radio, hoping to catch another transmission. Riley leaned against a wall, tossing a piece of metal in the air, his usual grin replaced by a far-off look. Naomi sat at the edge of the camp, her rifle always at the ready, her eyes fixed on the distance, and Elias, though tired, remained awake, the weight of leadership and loss weighing heavily on him. At dawn, the group set out for the military base. The journey was tense, and as they approached the crumbling structure, Naomi raised her hand, signaling for them to stop. Through her sniper scope, she spotted movement among the ruins. We've got company. Before they could react, gunfire erupted. The group dove for cover, scrambling behind debris as bullets ricocheted around them. Riley, grinning despite the danger, revved up his flamethrower and charged forward, flames billowing out in front of him as he cleared a path through the attackers. Elias and Sarah provided covering fire while Naomi, with her usual precision, picked off targets from a distance. It quickly became clear that their attackers weren't aliens. They were human soldiers, likely part of another faction. The firefight was short but brutal, and soon the group was inside the base, breathing heavily as they regrouped. As they ventured deeper into the base, the atmosphere grew more tense. The walls were lined with old technology, much of it alien in origin. Whatever had happened here, it was clear that the base hadn't been abandoned. It had been reclaimed by something far worse. And then they heard it, footsteps echoing in the darkness ahead. The footsteps grew louder, echoing ominously through the dark, narrow halls of the military base. The group, huddled in a defensive formation, braced themselves. Every breath was held, every heartbeat felt in the silence that followed. Whatever was ahead of them was either human or alien, but neither option brought comfort. Elias motioned for silence, raising his hand to halt their movement. His sharp eyes scanned the corridor, his military training kicking in. Beside him, Naomi knelt down, her sniper rifle ready to engage at the first sign of danger. Riley, gripping his flamethrower tightly, cast a quick glance at Sarah, who was already calculating possible escape routes in her head. The hallway stretched on, dimly lit by flickering, malfunctioning lights overhead. The walls, covered in grime and remnants of once advanced technology, told a story of a place long forgotten. But the footsteps, They told a different story. They told the story of something very much alive and aware of their presence. Without warning, a figure stepped into view. It wasn't alien, nor was it part of the government's forces. It was a lone survivor, dishevelled and gaunt, his eyes wild with fear. He stumbled forward, arms raised in a gesture of surrender, his voice shaking as he spoke. "Don't shoot, please. I thought you were them." Elias's hand shot up, signalling for Riley to hold his fire. The man fell to his knees, panting heavily. It was clear he'd been through hell, and his body bore the scars of it. Burns, cuts, and bruises covered his skin, and his clothes hung loosely on his frail frame. He was human, yes, but broken. Another casualty of the world's descent into madness. "Who are you?" The man, trembling, looked up at Elias with hollow eyes. "Survivor, I don't know anymore. Just a survivor, been running for so long. I used to work here, before they took over." Sarah, already suspicious, stepped forward, her arms crossed. "Who's they? The aliens? The government?" The man shook his head, his breath ragged. "Both. They're working together. The government, they gave up, sold us out. This place, it's not abandoned. They're using it, experimenting on us, testing weapons on survivors." His words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of truth. The group had heard rumors, but this was the first time they'd encountered someone who'd seen it firsthand. Naomi, her voice low, finally spoke. "How many?" The man's eyes darted around the room, as if the walls themselves could hear his confession. "I don't know. Dozens, maybe hundreds. They take us. I was one of the lucky ones, escaped before they could do whatever they're doing to the others." The group exchanged glances. This was bigger than any of them had imagined. They had come here looking for answers, and now they were staring at the horrific reality of what their world had become. Elias, ever the leader, stepped forward, pulling the man to his feet. "We're getting you out of here, but you're going to show us exactly what's going on in this base." The man hesitated, fear flickering in his eyes. "Survivor, you don't understand. If they find out, they'll kill us all." Riley, ever the optimist, flashed a grin. "That's the plan, buddy. We make it out. They don't." The survivor's face was a mixture of disbelief and terror, but he nodded, resigned to his fate. He led the group deeper into the base, down a series of winding, darkened corridors. The air was thick with dust, and the further they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. They finally reached a large steel door, half rusted but still functional. The survivor stopped, pointing shakily at it. "This is it, inside. You'll see." Elias glanced at the team. Everyone was tense, but ready. "Sarah, get it open." Sarah moved quickly, her hands deftly working the old rusted control panel next to the door. Within moments, the door creaked open, revealing a sight none of them could have prepared for. Rows upon rows of glass chambers filled the room, each one containing a human being, alive but not conscious. Tubes and wires snaked around their bodies, connecting them to machines that hummed with alien technology. The glow of the machines cast an eerie light over the room, illuminating the horrific experiments being conducted. Naomi, usually calm and controlled, felt a chill run down her spine. "What the hell is this?" The survivor, his voice barely audible, answered. "This is what they do. They experiment on us. They're changing us." Riley, anger bubbling just beneath the surface, stepped closer to the chambers, looking at the tortured expressions of the people trapped inside. "We have to destroy this place. Burn it all." Sarah moved closer to one of the chambers, her eyes scanning the technology, trying to understand it. "This isn't just experimentation. This is something else. They're merging human and alien DNA. It's like they're trying to create something new." Elias, fists clenched, stared at the nightmare before him. The war hadn't ended. It had just changed. The aliens weren't just invaders, molding humanity into something unrecognizable. "Elias, we destroy this place, then we get the word out. The world needs to know." Before they could act, alarms blared. The lights in the room flickered, and the door behind them slammed shut. Naomi, ever vigilant, raised her rifle. From the shadows of the room, figures began to emerge. But these weren't soldiers or aliens. They were something in between, a grotesque fusion of human and alien biology, their movements erratic and unnatural. The team braced for a fight, their weapons drawn, as the hybrid creatures lunged toward them. The firefight that followed was brutal and chaotic. Riley's flamethrower roared to life, engulfing the hybrids in flames, while Naomi's sniper rifle picked off targets with deadly precision. Sarah, with her quick reflexes, hacked into the base's systems, trying to override the security measures trapping them inside. Elias fought with the cold precision of a soldier, but as the creatures kept coming, it became clear they were outnumbered. Elias, we need to get out now. Sarah finally broke through the security, and the door groaned open again. The group fought their way through the hybrids, pushing toward the exit. As they reached the outside, Riley lit a final charge, throwing it back into the base. The explosion rocked the ground behind them, sending a plume of fire and debris into the sky. Breathless, bruised, and bloodied, the group stood outside the burning base. The survivor, wide-eyed with shock, stared at the flames. You don't understand. This was just one base. There are more, so many more. Elias turned to the group, his face grim but resolute. Then we take them all down, one by one. As the camera zoomed out, the burning military base a silhouette against the darkening sky, the group walked forward into the unknown, ready for the battles ahead. End of episode 1. Thanks for joining us for the first episode of Shattered Resistance. If you're enjoying the story so far and want to see where the fight takes us next, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, and let us know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss any future episodes or other epic stories coming your way. We've got a lot more action, twists, and battles ahead, so stay tuned. See you in the next episode.